Glass Onion's ending. I don't like it. Controversial opinion, I know, especially after the Oscar nomination for Best Screenplay. But I still think it left a lot to be desired. And in this video, I'll tell you why that is and what the ending should have been. But first, let me give you a summary of the story and remind you of the real ending. Glass Onion is a murder mystery that follows the very good movie Knives Out. This time, a tech billionaire called Miles invites a bunch of his friends to his island for a fun murder mystery game. However, two unexpected guests show up. Andy, their old friend that was outcasted from their group after being ripped off by them, and the very famous Detective Blanc, who Miles assumes was invited by one of his friends as a prank, so he lets him stay. A bad decision, as Blanc solves his mystery game almost instantly, which ruins their holiday. But that's the least of their worries, as one of the characters collapses and dies. Here, the movie takes a pause to tell us that Andy was murdered and that her twin sister Cassandra is in her place to find out who was responsible. And she asks the detective for help. And help he does, as Detective Blanc finds out that the billionaire is responsible for both murders. And Cassandra finds the napkin. It ends there, right? No, as Miles burns the napkin which served as evidence against him. But don't you fear, that's also not the ending, as in retaliation, Cassandra blows up the glass onion and lets the Mona Lisa burn. So it's a happy ending. Why am I upset? The bad guy gets exposed as his precious fuel destroys the Mona Lisa. Well, yes, but the ending is flawed. Let's go to the last 20 minutes. After Cassandra gets the tissue burnt, which is a problem of its own considering her and Miles were standing only a foot apart, she decides to just break and destroy everything, in some sort of cathartic rage, and everyone that had just acted blind to the discovery of Miles being a murderer starts joining in. I was baffled as I watched the scene, as I wouldn't even expect it from a kids' movie. But there was a plan hiding under all this destruction. It wasn't pointless, because Blanc had given her a hydrogen fuel mineral, and the real plan was for her to throw it on the fire she created and blow the whole place up. Yes, you heard it right. Cassandra takes this very dangerous hydrogen mineral and throws it to the fire in an attempt to blow up the whole place while they're all still inside the house, just a few feet away from the fire, threatening to kill not only herself, but everyone that stood in the mansion. Miraculously, no one gets hurt and she has time to let the famous Mona Lisa burn. All of Miles' so-called friends come out of this near-death experience with a huge change of heart, and they decide to testify against him. And then the movie ended and the audience clapped. In all seriousness, this plan, although seeming very smart on first glance, is so unbelievably unrealistic. First, she has to blow up the place while they're all inside, risking everyone's life. But that's not even the end goal, because even if they miraculously survived that explosion, she would have to be conscious and healthy enough to beat Miles to the button, which would burn the Mona Lisa. But again, that wouldn't be the end of it, because all she has done now is incriminate herself, as she has burnt both the Mona Lisa and the glass onion. So unless Miles' friends testify against him, all this plan was for nothing. So all of that had to happen for her to succeed in her plan, which obviously it did, because plot armor. But if she was smart enough to see that far into the future, she would see that this was way too risky of a plan, and that she could go down another, easier, less risky path. So now that I've convinced you that the ending was a bit too far-fetched, let me tell you what the easier, less risky path is. After Miles burned the napkin, she shouldn't have given up and started giving Miles some confidence back, because that's what he thrives on. She should have brought up all the other evidence which they still possessed, in a monologue that would have shaken up Miles' friends and Miles himself. And what evidence would that be? The fact that Miles poisoned Duke, the fact that Cassandra was shot by a gun that Miles was holding, and most importantly, the hydrogen mineral that she possesses, because that is enough proof to expose the shady new fuel that Miles wants to profit off. And by not throwing it in the fire this time and getting rid of it, you could hold on to it and prove how unstable and unsafe it is. The threat of that alone in a monologue from Cassandra would shake up Miles and his crew, and the crew, in an attempt to save themselves, will testify against Miles for the poisoning and the gunshot, which would bring Miles' defeat. But that's not the end of it, as in true Knives Out fashion, Miles has a last hurrah and tries to stab Cassandra in a fit of anger and rage. But just like Ransom did before, he fails as Blanc stops him in the nick of time, saving Cassandra and ensuring that Miles receives his judgment. So, how do you like that ending? I think it's less theatrical and dramatic, and more level-headed and in tune with the tone of the last film. Plus, it avoids having to rely on plot armor for the good guys to win. Anyways, that was my ending. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.